The Radio Forest Podcast.
Hey, is this Forrest?
Speaking.
This is David Paich from Toto speaking. How are you doing?
Doing great, David. Thanks for calling in today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You've got the new album, Forgotten Toys, and on it you've got your Toto bandmates, Steve Lukather, Joseph Williams, but you've also pulled in Don Felder from the Eagles, Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers, and Steely Dan. How did you decide who was going to be on that album? Because as long of a career as you've had, the list of who could be on it has got to be quite long.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That also has to do with casting, and that was Joseph and myself casting for who should play on what. And we kind of know our players. We know all these guys that played on it have been friends of ours for years. So we know what they're capable of, and it was fun. It's really fun just to go through the Rolodex there and bring our friends in to play on it. People like Steve Jordan, who's currently in the Rolling Stones playing, Greg Bissonette, who's with Ringo on drums, and Mike McDonald again, Don Felder, Davey Johnston from Elton John's band.
Ray Parker Jr.?
Ray Parker Jr., who's a great friend of mine, lives right down the street. James Torme, Mel Torme's son, scattered on Lucy. So it was nothing but love on this album.
Was it hard to fit these guys in? Because some of these songs, at least the basis of them, goes back a little bit, hence the title Forgotten Toys. So did you have to sort of change the song that existed in your head to fit these players? Or did you tell them, hey, play these notes in this direction?
I kind of, a little bit of both. We had made some demos and played them for them to give them an idea of what we wanted, but I didn't want to restrict them too much and let them, I wanted them to bring something to the table, which they did. So I was very grateful and loved their inspired performances.
And you talked about working with a member of the Rolling Stones. You also worked with Keith Richards on one of his solo albums, I think his most recent one. What was it like working and hanging with him?
It was unbelievable. It was like a pinch me moment, something on my bucket list, Steve Jordan called me and invited me in. Steve Jordan produced Keith Richards' last solo album several years back. He saved an overdub for me to do. He knew what a fan I was. And so I walked in the studio, and there was Keith, and he introduced me to Keith, and I got to do an overdub. Keith put his arm around me and played me the rest of his album, and it was just a magical moment. I was in rarefied air there, and it was like I had a brain fog.
It's got to be tough because there's no way you're going to hear a song and be like, Keith, I think it kind of sucks. There's no way.
Yeah. No, I know. Keith's great. I love Keith's guitar intros. And that's me inspired by Keith on Queen Charade.
I think he's an underrated guitar player. I mean, he is Keith Richards, but you don't think of the greatest guitar players of all time. But if you watch his rhythm hand, and even without a guitar pick, and he'll take off a string, I'm always amazed at how good his rhythm hand is. It's like a solid, I don't know, it's just like a champion that you don't realize he's as good as he is.
And also, he's the main timekeeper of the Stones. Charlie used to follow him. He didn't follow Charlie. Charlie used to follow him,
Switching gears a little bit, what was it like then, and how did you get involved with working with Motley Crue on their Generation Swine album?
I only worked on one song with them, which was called Brandon, I believe. That was Steve Lukather became friends with Tommy Lee. So Tommy started hanging out with us and coming to some of our concerts, and he knew that I played piano. He didn't really consider himself a piano player, so he asked me to come in and play keyboards on he just had a new son, Brandon, and wanted me to he wrote a song for him. So he asked me to come in and play. I think I played piano and maybe a little bit of harpsichord on the song. And that was my one time working with Motley Crüe. Great guys.
I was always a little taken back because Tommy just seems like that, tattooed rock and roll, penis hanging out guy of Motley Crüe. I've seen him play piano quite a few times. I'm not a piano guy, as in I wouldn't know. He didn't suck from what I'd seen.
No, he's okay. He's very musical and the sweetest guy in the world.
With the connection through Lukather, did you also, I'm sure then you've ran into Eddie Van Halen with as close as those guys are, and Ringo Starr.
Yeah, I met Eddie through Luke, and Luke and Eddie were very tight, best friends. So I got the pleasure of meeting Eddie several times. And he was a great guy and a a guitar player, as everybody knows. Through Lukather, too, I met Ringo Starr a couple of times, and that's another pinch-me moment.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you meet a Beatle or a Rolling Stone, you're kind of in rarefied air, and it's something to behold,
Yeah, I just realized you've got the Beatles and the Stones. I mean, honestly, who else is there? I mean, that's Pink Floyd and Zeppelin, maybe? I mean, you've got The conversation is always Beatles or Stones, and both. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Jeff worked with Dave Gilmour. Luke has played on everything with everybody, too, so he works with Ringo quite a bit. And we both did the Paul McCartney-Michael Jackson duet, The Girl Is Mine. That was Lukather and Jeff and myself playing on that for Quincy Jones and George Martin.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to talk to Luke a couple of times. I think last time I talked to him, we were chatting about that the Weezer Toto songs back and forth, and I didn't know this, but he said that your guys' version of Hash Pipe, Weezer kind of didn't really respond or even really seem to care. That was Steve's words. He was like, they could have cared less what we did.
Oh, well, I'm not so sure about that. I'm sure they just racked it up for one as a kind of returning the gesture, I'm not sure. I can't comment on that because I don't know the guys in Weezer. I appreciate the job they did on Africa. I thought they did a knock-up job, and I'm grateful to them because it helped Toto with a new generation of people listening to Toto, and that's all I can say about it.
Since you did the vocals on Africa, how do you think Rivers Cuomo did just with the vocal part? I mean, it's a pretty dead-on, I don't want to say impression, but, I mean, he's singing it pretty much the way you did, I would interpret.
See, Dave, out of respect to him, man, he nailed it. I think he nailed it, and he nailed the harmonies, and it was great.
Now, on this new record, Forgotten Toys, you've got all kinds of stuff in there, harmonica and piano and backup singers. Do you think the clear production, is that something that comes from Joseph and the Toto camp? I mean, it's similar to Toto in the way that I can hear every instrument, but I don't think it sounds like a Toto record. So is the production something you picked up from Lukather and Williams and working together?
It is something I picked up, but I've also been producing since I was 21. So I have a lot of experience producing, and it really comes down to arranging parts and not having too much clutter on your records, keeping them simple. And also the mixer is key. And I had one of the best mixers around, a guy named Bob Clearmountain, who you probably heard of before. He is a great mixer, and that combined with my experience from Toto and other people like Cheryl Lynn and Bob Skaggs, I was able to navigate through the songs and make them so you can appreciate the elements.
I think it was The Spirit of Moonrise. I think that one had harmonica and backup singers and piano and guitar and bass and singing. I was like, that's a lot going on. How you said you make sure that you don't get like stuff lost in the mix. How do you keep it all clear then? Because if you've got 7 different things or 7 different tracks, are they all the same level? Are you moving stuff up and down, or is that just all in the mix?
We're moving stuff around, but it's also players have to be aware of when to play and when not to play. All the players we have like to leave a lot of space in their playing so there's room for other players to play. And we have to make sure that players, when we bring a player in, that they don't overplay on the song. Keeping every part simple makes for this union and this massive sound that comes out where everything works together and you hear something different every time because everybody's playing simple parts in their own right, but it all gels together as a big arrangement.
And maybe it's my own personal opinion, but I kind of wish, guys like you and the Doobie Brothers and the Eagles would sort of hold a master class. Some of these new bands and new songs, I like them, but sometimes there's so much going on. I just hear a wall of sound, and it's like, maybe I just miss that vinyl analog feel. I can hear the cymbal, like there's the triangle or whatever. I think a little bit of that is missing sometimes, and they're good songs. I wish it was a little clearer.
Well, a lot of songs are cookie-cutter stamped right now, production-wise, I think. And again, I hear this massive production. I hear a lot of bass drum, and I hear great singing. I got to hand it to you. There's a lot of great singers out right now. But as far as the chemistry and the back and forth, the collaboration, and the counterpoint that goes on between musicians when they play in a room together and play off of each other, that's what's missing to me in a lot of music, is this interaction between musicians and how one guy plays will react to what another guy plays. What's hard when music's all computerized and you're just trying to fill the void with sound, that's a different kind of producing. I've done that kind of stuff too, but I prefer interaction among the players.
Let's talk about the cover real quick for Forgotten Toys. You've got kind of a connection, right, to the stuff that's displayed there, some of the marbles and some of the toys. Tell me where some of them have come from for for the photo?
Some of them came, I had a bag of marbles that I had since I was a kid. A lot of the other stuff, artist concept came from my wife, who thought of putting a bunch of toys on the front cover. And we finally got it down from skateboards and bicycles to marbles and jacks and little artifacts and collectibles. There's even some Toto Easter eggs in there for people to secretly discover. And my wife's going to write out little stories about what each of the little collectibles are. So it was really her brainchild. A lot of the stuff is stuff she's had for years, or that her and I together have had for years. It's all meaningful.
Where do you keep your 6 Grammys in your house?
I have to say, because I've been doing photography, publicity photographs, they're on my piano in my living room because my wife moved them out there so they could get photo shots of me. Before I had them in the bar, they were up in glass cabinets facing the rest of the room right there. But right now they just stay on top of my piano that my wife's mother gave me.
You've got a piano. Surely you've got some guitars. I mean, do you have recording capabilities at your house?
I have a full-on recording studio. I have 5 pianos.
Five pianos? Holy cow.
I have 5. 2 are in my house. One's an upright. One's a baby grand. I have 2 more baby grands in the studio upstairs, and then I have my 9-footer downstairs that I record on that I did all the Toto records with, from Hold the Line to Rosanna to Africa, was all in this one piano that I have. So, and I have a recording studio. So it's really the greatest train set a big kid can ever have. You know what I mean? Keyboard player right now in this day and time with all the sampling and all the stuff going on here. I really love the technology, what it offers in the realm of sounds that have never been heard, you know?
If you ever have to move, that is going to suck so bad.
Yeah, that would be terrible. We're talking about moving, but we can't because we have so much here invested in the property right here and everything. It's my home, and it feels great to just get out of bed, walk across the driveway, and there you're at a recording studio, you know? So it's a pretty great setup.
David Paich from Toto, new album, Forgotten Toys. David, thanks for the call today, and it's great to chat with you.
Hey, thank you, too. And I just want to say thank you to all of our fans and friends and family out there giving us their loyal support all these years. And we're very grateful and very blessed. Just thank you all and bless you all.